Hey there, this is Katie Corbett, and you are listening to the Health, Wellness, and Chocolate podcast. I wanted to talk to you today about exploring and discovering your core beliefs. And the reason I wanted to talk about this particular topic to you is because, if you've ever started out and you might set a goal for yourself. For example, I'm going to exercise every day this week or, 4 times this week. And then each day goes by and you don't do it, even though you really want to. And you might even go to bed every night being like, why didn't I exercise? I really wanted to. Or you could be like, okay, today I'm going to eat according to I always teach, write out what you're going to have 24 hours ahead of time and then stick to it. Keep your word to yourself. Okay. So say you write it out, or maybe you forget to write it out, but you intended to. And then, the day goes by and you didn't stick to the plan, or you didn't stick to eating well the way you wanted to. And sure enough, you go to bed at night and you're like, why isn't this working for me? How come I have all these ideas that, I really want to improve my health. I really, really want it more than I want anything else in my whole life. But I just keep sabotaging myself, or I'm just not hitting the goals that I set for myself. And I cannot figure out why I keep doing what I don't want to do and I don't do what I want to do. And you're kind of stuck, right? You just can't figure out why you keep doing it, and you beat yourself up. And all those times you're not keeping your word to yourself, you're failing basically at sticking to your word, at sticking to a plan, at sticking to your goals. It kind of eats away at your self-esteem. And then you really internalize it and think, okay, something's wrong with me. I'm a loser. All the terrible things we say to ourselves. I'm a loser. I'm never going to get this right. How come all these skinny girls never have to worry about this? What's wrong with me? Why is this so hard for me? No one else struggles like this. Well, first of all, you're not alone. Second of all, you're totally not a loser. I promise you that there's so much, there's so many layers to weight loss. And I almost feel like when someone especially if they really don't struggle with their weight, and they're like, just eat less and move more, and that's it. And it's like, okay, well, if it was that easy, I would have done that by now and I would have hit my goal. So stop it, Barbie, and be quiet, right? You just kind of get frustrated because you might even know all the rules and all the reasons how to lose weight and all the things, but you're still stuck. And I'm telling you, I hear you. And my heart goes out to you, because there's no worse place to be than having the head knowledge, but really just the behavior isn't following the intentions and the goals. So when your behavior does not line up with your intent, it means that you're holding two sets of opposing feelings. And though you might not know what the opposing feeling is. So what I want to talk to you today about is discovering your core beliefs. This is one of the areas we have talked about, beliefs and finding out kind of who you are and what drives you. But uncovering this next layer could really be instrumental in helping you get to the next level in your weight loss. So when you have opposing actions versus your desires, really what's happening is you are at odds with one of the core beliefs that you have about you. And now we've talked previously in the podcast about beliefs about yourself. What do you think about you, your thoughts about you? But this class is going to go a little bit deeper, and I'm going to help you review some of the beliefs that you have, how to dig them up and kind of identify them. I think sometimes too, we don't really even recognize a core belief because it's really just something we assume is just true. We don't even question it. And I'm going to go through first how to identify it, but then how to even see, is it even rational, the thought that you're having about yourself? And then how to maybe start making those changes to make it, to take the belief that you have, identify it if it's a rational belief, and if it isn't, how to change that irrational belief then to a rational belief. Okay. So this is just a highlight. We go into some more deeper thought work inside the Health and Wellness Blueprint, but this should get you started. And hopefully you take this week and, grab a pen and paper now if you want, but also consider this throughout the week as thoughts come up for you, write them down. So I always do whatever I teach you. So I have done this. So I'm going to share with you some of my core beliefs. And and hopefully it'll kind of get your juices flowing. I also got a lot of my information about this from Carol Coing. She wrote the book called The Rules of Normal Eating. It looks like this. It's a very helpful book if you have struggles with the way your thoughts are, especially around your body type and eating and overeating and compulsive eating. The book could probably help you a lot, but I'm going to give you a couple of, pull out a few things that she teaches, and hopefully you can take it and run with it, because the book is, I found, very helpful in a lot of areas. So first, we want to identify, like, what are the opposing actions that we're doing versus the desires. So it could be, all right, I'm not going to overeat at dinner. And all of a sudden, dinner comes and there I am, overeating, okay? And then dinner's over and then you feel like, why did I do that? I know I didn't want to do that. So what are the core beliefs? Now, a core belief could be, we shouldn't waste food. Right? And so overeating at dinner isn't a lack of willpower. It's going up against a core belief of, if I stop eating this food and leaving it on my plate, I'm going to be wasting. I can't waste food. People that waste food are wasteful, and they're inconsiderate of all the other people in the world. Or, maybe if you don't eat everything that's been given to you, it's because you're ungrateful. And a core belief for you is, I have to be grateful for everything given to me. And a way to show my gratefulness would be to finish what's on my plate, right? Or we always finish what's on our plate. So the core beliefs, you're coming up against them. And it's not a lack of willpower. It's just this, you have a core belief that you probably haven't paid any attention to, because it's just part of who you are. And the goals that you have, like to either lose weight or not overeat at a certain period of time or exercise, it's going up against a core belief. And the job for this week then is to uncover those core beliefs, because I think once you kind of uncover them, then you can look at them and be like, wait a second. And I've talked about this before, especially like after a holiday, if you feel like you have to eat everything because it's going to be wasted, well, it's going to be wasted on your body or it's going to be wasted in the garbage can. So you might as well not keep it on your body and hurt your health. Like, get rid of it, right? It's going to be wasted either way. We live in an abundant time where food is readily available. If we were in a country where there was a famine and it would be foolish not to eat everything on our plate, then that belief would make sense that we should eat everything on our plate. But for the most part, I believe I'm talking to people that are probably in a first world country that have an abundance of food and that they are surrounded by abundance of food, because if you weren't, you probably wouldn't be listening to a weight loss podcast, right? So I'm not talking about the outliers that don't have a weight problem, that live in a third world country that have famine and it would be unwise to waste food. I'm talking to typical American that is surrounded by an abundance of food and feeling like it would be wasteful. So they'll overeat more than they want because it's a core belief to not waste food, right? So what you need to do is start identifying, okay, where are these core beliefs? And the best way to do it is to keep your pad and paper with you and then jot them down as they come up. And they'll probably feel like little light bulbs, like, oh, I never really thought of that. So for me, one of the core beliefs that I had, and I've talked about this before, was like, good moms don't feel overwhelmed. And obviously that's totally irrational, because good moms feel overwhelmed, right? If they care about their kids, they want the best. And sometimes that feels overwhelming, right? But my core belief was a good mom wouldn't feel overwhelmed. So when I felt overwhelmed, then I felt terrible. And it would be 4:00 and the kids would be crazy. And I'd be like, I need some chocolate, right? And I'd go elbow deep into that bag of chocolate chips and enjoy them. But it wasn't serving me. It was completely irrational. The thought of, mom should not feel overwhelmed. I'd go have the chocolate chips and then I'd beat myself up. Like, why are you having them? You don't want them. It doesn't make any sense, Katie. What are you doing? Right? But then once I uncovered, okay, my core belief is good moms don't feel overwhelmed. Then I feel bad about it. And my brain will say, well, you feel bad. You need to go eat something so you feel better. And I don't question that. I just go eat the chocolate chips. It's really about raising your awareness in all the thoughts and getting off of autopilot and then starting to pay attention. So a core belief for me was good moms don't feel overwhelmed. Now I say, okay, I can feel overwhelmed and still be a good mom. And being overwhelmed kind of comes with the territory, right? If it was easy, would it be worthwhile? No. So now it's like, okay, I know I'm going to feel overwhelmed at 4 o'clock. So what can I do when I do feel overwhelmed that's going to actually support my goals? What is a good thing to do, right? And so I've talked about this before. I put on a podcast that I can learn interesting things. And then we all go outside and we walk around my driveway. Nothing fancy. It doesn't cost me money. I don't have to worry about traffic and the kids getting into trouble, right? Everybody just plays outside. They ride their bikes or they play on the playground or in the sandbox. It's a win-win for all of us. But I would have never noticed that if I didn't pay attention to what my core beliefs were and start uncovering them. Okay, so let me go. I highlighted a couple pages in the book that I wanted to share with you because I thought it would help you. So bear with me while I pull up some of these. Let's see. So Karen says that whenever your behavior doesn't align with your intent, it means you're holding two sets of opposing feelings, like we just talked about. The conscious side, okay, so like on one side, which is your conscious side, you have the benefits, the apparent advantages that result in a sensible desire to exercise. That's the example she gives us for exercise. So you can feel empowered, take charge of your life, promote good health, engage in behavior that complements your goal of to lose weight or get back in shape. But the problem is you're unaware that your feelings on the other side of the ledger, the unconscious side. And those are the contradictory feelings of the reasons why you wouldn't want to exercise, okay? So they just lurk beyond your awareness for a couple of reasons. One is they make you feel uncomfortable, right? Like, so mine was, I felt overwhelmed and that made me feel totally uncomfortable because that made it mean something about me. Like, I'm a terrible mother because I feel overwhelmed. It was totally irrational. It made no sense, right? Because you want to feel positive. Like you might want to feel positive about a situation, but then you don't. And so you ignore it and hope it goes away, but it doesn't. And then you wind up not doing whatever it was that you wanted to do. So that is the first thing. So figure out so your first job then this week would be to find the examples in your life where you're doing something you don't want to do, or you've set a goal for yourself and you're behaving differently, right? Your behavior is not matching up with the intent you set. So if it's in regard to weight loss, or if it's even in regard to like budgeting, here's a good one because, and I'm going to go off on a little bit of a rabbit trail, but it does back up with weight loss as well. Because I've said this before, what you do in one area, you do in a lot of areas. So if you're over consuming food, chances are you're also over consuming in other areas of your life. So say one of your goals then, and this isn't necessarily related to weight loss, but say one of your goals is to get on a budget and you find yourself overspending all the time and not paying attention to the budget. Well, your core value may be, I need to be generous and show people I love them by buying them things. And so if you're trying to stay on a budget and not buy things and not overconsume, but your core value is I show love by buying gifts for people, right? Maybe gifts is the love language for you, right? It's going to be hard for you then to be on a budget without at least first identifying, okay, I show love to people by buying them things. And that is why it's so hard for me to not stick to my budget because I want to really show my love to people and buy them things. So there's a disconnect, right? So now you need to figure out, okay, what are other ways? Because that is an irrational thought. There's plenty of ways you can show love to people besides going into debt for them. So what are other ways that you can be showing them love besides spending money, right? So that's just another example outside of weight loss. Because the way you do one thing is the way you do all things. So take a look at that too. Are there other areas of your life besides just dealing with food or exercise or improving your health that are not lining up with the way you want to behave? Because there's a ripple effect. So keeping your word to yourself has an effect on your waistline. So even if it's not an area of dealing with health and wellness, of you keeping your word to yourself, it does affect your integrity, your self-concept, your self-esteem, right? So keeping your word to yourself improves your self-esteem. And so you want to take a look at all areas of your life, maybe not just with food, but start with food if that's, or exercise or any health improvement way first, okay? So that's your first job, is to go ahead and look at where you're not keeping your word to yourself and try to identify what the core belief is that you're coming up against. And she gives some ideas on how to find them, which I'll go into in a few minutes. But once you identify them, you can readjust them and then stop the bad habit without feeling deprived or feeling miserable. Because then you can finally identify, like, okay, this is actually the root of the cause of me doing this. It's not necessarily that I'm not a loser. I'm just trying to figure this out. So now there she quotes, and I'm going to flip to this page next. So give me 1 second. Okay, so core beliefs, right? Going back to these core beliefs. So there is a doctor named Dr. Maxie Maltzby, and she says this: rational thinking, okay, has the following 4 characteristics. So what you want to do is you want to take those core beliefs. A belief is really just a thought you think over and over again. Okay, so you want to take these thoughts that you have, and we've gone over how to identify your thoughts. You could just start writing them down. Just come up with everything that comes up to you about some of these beliefs that you have. And so then you want to take each individual belief that you have and hold it up against this criteria. So the first one is that it bases itself primarily on objective fact as opposed to subjective opinion. Okay, so did I give you an example for that one yet? No, not yet. Okay, so the first one is it goes on objective fact as opposed to your opinion. So you can take the belief and you can prove it as a fact as opposed to just your opinion. So my opinion was good moms don't feel overwhelmed. Now, is that a fact? No, it's not. Okay, so that was the first thing, right? So it's irrational. So the second characteristic is if it was acted upon, it will most likely result in the preservation of my life and limb rather than my premature death or injury. Okay, so me having the feeling of good moms don't feel overwhelmed, was that actually helping me? No, it wasn't. Okay, so it wasn't making my life better. Okay, with that thought, it will produce a personally defined life. It will help me hit my life goals more quickly. Again, no, because my thought, good moms don't get overwhelmed, just triggered guilt, and that triggered me to want to go eat chocolate. So it totally did not help me hit life's goals more quickly at all, right? It was actually the opposite. It was really derailing my weight loss efforts. Okay, and then the fourth one was it prevents undesirable personal or environmental conflict. Okay, so no, it didn't, because it created conflict in me, right? Because I would go eat the chocolate chips and all of a sudden feel so guilty and feel so beaten down, feeling like, oh man, I can't keep my word to myself. I have no willpower. I can't control myself. I'm such a loser, right? So all those thoughts, like a good mom doesn't feel overwhelmed, and then going ahead and having the chocolate chips to help myself feel better. That was an irrational thought. So a rational thought is good moms do feel overwhelmed. And now I could say, okay, well, I do feel overwhelmed. I am a good mom. What can a plan be that would help me feel better, right? To help me hit my goals, to help me not feel guilty, to help, it would help preserve my life, right? So now instead I'm going outside and walking, and we're all benefiting from that habit change. It helps me get to my goals more quickly, right? So walking outside instead of going elbow deep into that bag of chocolate chips definitely helped my weight loss efforts. And then of course it prevented that conflict then, right? I was able to hit my goals pretty easily with just that mindset shift. So you can hold that idea up to that criteria that she sets out for you. So it is it a fact or an opinion is the first one. Will it help preserve your life, or will it cause you premature death or injury? The third one, will it help you hit your goals more quickly? And then the fourth one, will it cause an undesirable conflict within you? And if it does, that it is an irrational goal. If it doesn't, then it is a rational goal. Okay. So there's that. So what you want to do then is go ahead and get a pen and paper. One of my thoughts was, if I let myself get hungry, I think it was like I will eat and never stop. I think that was one of the irrational thoughts I had. And another one was, if I let myself be hungry, then I'm powerless. So those were two irrational goals that when I did this, I identified, and it was interesting because so I was able to say, like, okay, overeating at a meal preserves me from ever feeling hungry, because I associate hunger with powerlessness and weakness. So identifying that and then being able to change the tape that plays inside my mind, like, you're not weak if you allow yourself to get hungry, because you're an adult, and if you get hungry, you can always eat. So there's no reason to feel powerless in this situation. So that was a huge belief that I was able to identify and uncover, and then actually be proactive about and start changing. So it was an irrational belief that going through this thought work, was able to uncover. So what you want to do is just quickly write down your thoughts and your beliefs about eating, food, your body, weight, anything you could think of. Just write it down. Don't filter. Don't censor yourself. Just write it all down, because this will help trigger your brain to even go deeper and deeper and deeper into your thoughts. And then I will, she gives some examples of what to look for. So I thought what I would do would share mine to help, not all of them, but let's see. Okay, so let's see. Sorry, I'm just trying to find the beliefs I wrote down so you can. Okay, so with beliefs about food, let's see. I feel like a failure when I gobble food. I fear being hungry, and I just went over that one with you. I hate when my brain feels lightheaded. Throwing out food when I'm just satisfied is wasteful. If I stop eating when I'm just satisfied, I'll be hungry faster, and I hate feeling hungry because I'm not safe when I feel hungry. I'm not powerful, and I'm not in control. A full belly means safety. All these thoughts like that, like you start with one, and then all these thoughts start coming out. So filling up with food means safety, because you can relax when you're full and feel calmer. If I allow myself to feel hungry, that when I'll never stop. Once you start eating, it always ends in overeating. Telling myself to stop eating, especially if the food tastes good. Overeating or stuffing food feels normal. Afraid to stop at just satisfied, or that it won't be enough to keep hunger away longer. So all these are rational beliefs, right? Or just thoughts about food, thoughts about my body, thoughts about weight, thoughts about eating. You just write them all down. And then what you want to do then is to start discovering the general core beliefs that kind of go along with this. And I gave you a few examples. So a core belief would be, if I leave food on my plate, that's wasteful, right? And wasteful people are terrible, right? That might be the core belief. Like, wasteful people are terrible, and if I leave food on my plate, that means I'm terrible, right? And who wants to be terrible? So you would never leave food on your plate. But if your desire is to lose weight, but you can't stop leaving food on your plate, you're kind of like, what am I doing, right? But it's a core belief, and it's hard to go against. So she suggests too, if you're having a real problem kind of coming up with core beliefs, to go ahead and grab a book of like proverbs, or like sayings like, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, an eye for an eye, like all these different sayings, and see which ones ring true for you. And that might help you as well. Let's see. So once you've identified those core beliefs, then you go through and hold it up against the Dr. Maltzby's test. as to whether or not it really is something you need to hold on to or something that you really should let go. Is it irrational and really holding you back from hitting the goals you want? Or is it actually helpful and helping you get to where you want to be faster? Okay, so what you want to do is identify the core beliefs and then root out the ones that are dysfunctional. And a really good indicator of a belief that is dysfunctional and not helpful to you would be if it's rooted in perfectionism, if it's this idea of all or nothing, right? So this all or nothing thinking, which we go over as well, or if it's rooted in like a low self-worth for you. And actually she wrote some really good ones about that. And I want to read them to you because these core beliefs are so powerful. Here, I'm going to read this to you. Okay, she says, and this is on page 98, she says, your core beliefs often unconsciously have a hand in nearly everything you say and do. Therefore, along with identifying your specific healthy and unhealthy beliefs about food, eating, weight, and your body, you must also discover your more general core beliefs so that you know that they are sound, functional, rational, and appropriate. Remember, becoming a normal eater goes beyond your relationship with food, right? It really has much more to do with what you're thinking than you really realize. So, for example, if you believe that you don't deserve much in life, you're likely to trash yourself by constantly overeating junk food that makes you sick in your body and your spirit. Isn't that fascinating? And I was like, oh, this is good. Here's another one. If you believe you can't depend on other people to take care of you, you may turn to food rather than calling a friend. And so if your overeating was rooted in like childhood, and that's how you felt nurtured or loved, of course, you're going to rely on food to make you feel better because that's what you learned in childhood to help you feel better, to help nurture you. So if you believe that you must keep others happy in order to receive love and affection, there's a good chance you'll make unsatisfying food choices rather than ruffle any feathers. So you'll eat to feel better as opposed to maybe calling someone out for their poor behavior because you feel like you can't do that, okay? Let's see. If you believe that there's never enough of the good things in life, you'll likely be driven to inhale all the food on your plate. And that's so true, right? If food is the best part of your day, of course you're going to overeat it, right? Who would want to not have a good part of their day? Of course you're going to overeat and then feel bad about it because your life is so unsatisfying and you're turning to food to try to make that satisfying. If you believe your body isn't very valuable, you'll probably have very little interest in nourishing it well. Or if you believe that feeling pleasure is wrong, you might say no to all the foods that taste good. If you believe there's nothing more important than appearance, you may strive for thinness at any price and forget about whether it's thin is even healthy. If you believe you can't trust your body to regulate its needs and wants, you may end up not responding to your hunger cues in fear of being unable to stop eating. And if you believe that you don't have much inside to offer the world, you might think that a thin body will make you popular. Isn't that so good? I was like, oh, this is so good. So important to get those core beliefs uncovered because it's not about the food. It's about your brain and what your brain is talking to you about. So uncover those core beliefs. Take the time to really do it. It might not be pleasant because it might cause you fear to actually have that much self-awareness, but it truly is. And listen, you're not going to discover all this about yourself in 5 minutes sitting down. It's just like a process that takes time. Keep the pen and paper with you, or if you have a cell phone, as thoughts come up or situations come up and you're doing the thing that you don't want to be doing, pause and write down, like, what are the thoughts I'm having right now? Why do I feel compelled to do this, even though it's not lining up with my goals? Why are these actions, they're not lining up with my goals? Why am I compelled to do it? Write it in your notes section of your phone. Everybody always has a phone with them. That's something you can do if you don't want to keep a pen and paper with you. I'm kind of old fashioned like that. I just like I like to take notes. And so it's just easier for my brain to remember things when I write it down and I write it out. So that's why I always say a pen and paper, but you can use your phone. It doesn't matter. All right. So small changes are going to start to happen once you notice this, and then you could start tweaking. Just like how I started going outside to walk instead of having the chocolate chips, right? Small changes. My health improved. My weight went down, not from dieting, but just from the fact that instead of eating, I was going outside and walking. I didn't feel deprived because the core that was driving that desire for the chocolate was addressed, right? I was able to shift that. And then the food kind of took back its natural place, right? So some of the changes that could happen was maybe your self-care might start improving, right? If you're somebody who doesn't think you have much value and you don't really care, or that you don't think your needs are important, maybe because a core belief of your own is like, my needs can't get met. So therefore they're just not important, but you can identify that and say, okay, no, that's not really rational. Well, all of a sudden now you can develop a self-care routine and your self-care starts to improve. And that has ripple effects into your life, right? You may develop more compassion and a more balance in life. Shame or guilt may be reduced because you realize, like for me, my guilt went down because I was like, that is an irrational thought. Good moms can get overwhelmed, right? My guilt went way down on that one. You may be able to offer other people more grace because you're done with that perfectionist mindset. You've been able to identify it and shift from that. You can also improve the quality of your relationships because once you identify these core beliefs, you could see maybe if there's been some that have been out of balance, and maybe set some boundaries for yourself. And then if there's a toxic relationship, you may be able to detach from it once you start to identify the core beliefs. Like maybe a core belief is I have to make everybody happy in order for them to like me. And so maybe there are some toxic relationships because you have a need to be liked, and you're able to identify that, and then you could start setting up some boundaries and maybe weeding out those toxic relationships. And once they're gone, maybe your stress goes down, and then that hunger switch is dialed down because you're not stressed so much, right? All these things are really interconnected, and I feel like the diet industry doesn't really address them in that way. I feel like they just say, well, eat less and move more and you'll lose weight, which might be true if we were robots, but we are humans with emotions and with a brain, and we have to really dig down and identify all these things too. So here's an example. If you can drive out scarcity thoughts, it might cause you to just eat what's on your plate. So if you have a dieter's mentality where you're thinking, I have to eat this now because I don't know when I'm going to allow myself to have this again, that's a scarcity mentality, right? If you can identify that and say, you know what, I'm going to tell myself I am going to be allowed to eat this whenever I want because I'm an adult. So I'm going to taste it and savor it and chew it. But when I'm satisfied, I'm not going to keep eating it in a hurried or crazy, chaotic way. I'm going to throw it out. And I'm going to give myself permission to do that because I'm in control and I can always go and get it again if I feel like I absolutely have to have it because I'm an adult. And believe it or not, I had to tell myself that for a good year. Like, Katie, you're an adult. You don't have to eat this all right now. If you want, you can go back and get it again. So don't feel like this is it. You got to shove it all in. You don't have to. And so, believe it or not, if we got ice cream, I would get a kitty hard chocolate, and then I'd have maybe a couple bites. But as soon as my satisfaction started to dwindle, it's like, okay, I'm done. And it was really only one scoop of ice cream in a kitty cup. But so maybe I'd eat half of it, and I was plenty satisfied with just that much, and I was able to throw the rest away without feeling guilty, without feeling like I was wasting it, without any drama attached to it. It's like, that was delicious. I paid for it and I'm done, and that's it. It's over, and move on with life, right? So that's just an example. So my core belief and something that I taught myself is like, I'm a full adult and I can get my needs met. And so if I want something, I can go get it. I'm perfectly able to do that, right? I have agency, and that helped me stop overeating and it helped me trust myself. Like, I didn't need to overeat because the food was not scarce anymore. I could just go get it, right, the next time I wanted it. And that eliminated that deprivation mindset or that scarcity mindset, like, oh, I have to have it now because I never know when I'm going to get it again. Like, oh, that's so silly. I can get it whenever I want, right? And just that little shift, it was like, oh, well, then I don't have to eat all this right now, and I could just get rid of it and life will go on. And it did. It was amazing, right? So, okay. And the last part of this is, you identify these irrational thoughts, but how do you even change them? So the first thing you have to do is identify them. right? And think of them as weeds you want to go through. So identify the irrational thoughts. Well, identify your thoughts first, then identify the ones that are irrational. And then think of them as weeds. You want to pull them out. And you can't just get rid of them. You really need to replace them with something. And you could put them through Dr. Maltzby's criteria for rational thinking, right? So is this thought based on fact? Will my health be enhanced or my life lengthened? Will this thought help me reach my life goals faster? And will this thought prevent an undesirable conflict? All right. If you can answer those, like, yes, this thought will help me reach my goals. Yes, it helps prevent conflict. Yes, it will help enhance my health. Yes, it is based on fact. Then it is a rational thought. If you answer no, then it is not a rational thought and you should get rid of it. And then the rules of change. Karen goes into that too. She says they're simple, but they're not easy. And that is true, right? Changing any behavior is simple. You just have to stop doing it and start doing something else. And that sounds so simple, but it's not necessarily easy. Just like a sit-up. A sit-up is simple, right? You just lay on your back and you sit up. But it's not necessarily easy. Sometimes it hurts, especially if you have to do a few in a row. Like at first you might nail it the first time, but then after a while it gets kind of hard, right? So it's simple, but not necessarily easy. So change is also slow. So don't beat yourself up if it takes a while to get the hang of this, or if, and like I've said too, fail forward to start trying this. Just keep going. Every day. You're not going to arrive there at the end of this podcast and be like, okay, I've got all my thoughts down, I've got all my beliefs down, and I'm ready to change everything. You won't get there today. This is a process and it takes time. But start and then see what comes up for you. Because it is fun once you figure one out and you have that moment of clarity, and then you're able to change it and your health improves and your self-concept improves. It's so empowering, and you can keep doing that over and over again. Take one now and build on it, okay? So change is also slow. It's incremental and it's slow. It doesn't happen without discomfort. Some of these things may be uncomfortable for you to discover about yourself, because it really is sometimes very comforting to stay with the habits that we have. But keep going, keep failing forward, and keep pushing, especially if this is something you want to achieve. It takes time, but you can do it. It's not impossible. It is simple. It just takes intention, just like we talked about last week, right? Intention. And then be persistent. You may need to develop new personality traits, which we've also talked about. Like, who do you need to be who you want to be? Right? It's kind of like dress for the job you want, not the job you have. Well, be the person you want to be now so that you can become the person that you want to be. Okay. So if you want to be someone who is active with their kids, you're not going to get there by always just sitting on the couch, right? You got to start being active with them. So it may cause you to have to shift your personality a bit in order to start hitting the goals that you want to hit, but it's worth it. So start thinking about that as well. And we believe we've had prior podcasts talk about that. Kind of considering your future self, and then who do you need to be now to be that person. But I do know we go into all this inside the Health and Wellness Blueprint in great detail. We also meet weekly on Zoom calls to chat about all this stuff and go over things deeper. I'm always there for you to ask questions. Like, so if you had questions like, okay, is this a belief? Is it rational? Could you help me with this? This is where I'm struggling, or this always pops up for me and I cannot seem to get around it. Like, give me some strategies or help me, coach me through this. Like, what are some ideas you have? Like, it's all inside the Health and Wellness Blueprint. This is what we do. So if you're struggling with your weight and you keep doing behaviors that you seriously do not know why you do them, join me inside the Health and Wellness Blueprint. You can try it for just $1 to get the foundational core concepts and the ebook down, and then stay with me. Every week we do a new class. I have the advanced class trainings in there. You get the workbook. And again, you have access to me in there. You can email me, or you can meet me on Monday mornings at 10, and we go through another concept, and then I go ahead and take any questions that you have. So I would love to see you in there. I think this is one of those things where if you're ready to seriously start thinking and start to get to know yourself and really uncover those core beliefs and uncover more about yourself so that weight loss isn't hard or elusive anymore, this is what you need to learn. So I would love to have you join me inside the Health and Wellness Blueprint. In the meantime, have an awesome week. I will see you next week. And that's it. Go outside, enjoy that good weather while you can, right? Spring has sprung. All right, take care. Bye-bye.